Last time we talked about how the mitochondria are primary in our state of health and our vulnerability to fall into disease. Now, a lot of you are probably shocked to hear this, because we've always thought, right? We've always talked about how gut is everything, right? Treat the gut, treat the gut, treat the gut, immune system will be perfect, everything will be perfect. And, I believe still in that. And I was a huge believer in that, to the point where I actually spent literally a summer doing so much research that I ultimately published a paper. But one of the things that I realized that wasn't it. That was not all that there is. And part of that is because I've had so many kids in my practice where we fixed their gut, we fixed their diet, eliminated everything, probiotics, blah, 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 and they were still sick. They were still getting sick. In fact, they weren't getting any better. And, I have this population of kids where their immune systems just were not responding the way that they should. And ultimately, for me, taking care of my patients is way more important than anything that I've been told from anyone. They could be God as far as I can be, as far as I'm concerned. So, in asking the questions, why are these little kiddos in my practice not getting well? What is it about their system that causes them to lack vitality? Because that's ultimately what mitochondria are. Mitochondria are what give us vitality. They are what give us energy. They are what give us resiliency. When the mitochondria work well, your vitality is amazing. And I'm sure you've seen those people where they sleep 4 hours and they're constantly stressed. Elon Musk is a perfect example of that. That guy is just such a weird machine where, there could be a tsunami that hits him and he's just like, I'm fine. And it's just like, how do you function like that, man? I wish I had that kind of resiliency. I sure as heck don't. Despite the millions of supplements and all the dietary things I do, I'm still a puny little twig in comparison to this trunk of a person that he is. But one of the things, when you look at people like Elon Musk, who pretty much never get sick. They've got the energy of an ox and they sleep 4 hours and they're fine. And then there are other people that if they don't sleep 10 hours every night, they fall apart. These are the things that I want you to be looking at. This is how I want you to be thinking about things, because these differences, and I'm sure you see it even in your own children, perhaps yourself and your spouse or yourself and your friends, where you've got that one friend that just never gets sick and they're just going, and nothing bothers them. They just plow through everything, and then yourself, maybe your kids, boom, something happens, you get sick. That is all related to vitality, resiliency. And this is what I want to give you. I want you to learn how to optimize your vitality, optimize the resiliency in your kid. And that is all ultimately tied to the mitochondria. The more energy you have, the more electricity you can produce, the greater your resiliency, the greater your vitality. And one of the organ systems is the immune system that is impacted by our vitality. So if you do a search for mitochondria immunity or mitochondria coronavirus, for instance, article after article after article after article will come up talking about how these tiny little suckers in our cells impact the immune system in profound ways. For instance, we have these things called dendritic cells. Dendritic cells are kind of the generals. They actually give marching orders to all of the other immune systems, other immune cells within our body. When the dendritic cells go haywire, all of a sudden you get this massive immune dysregulation that almost makes no sense. It turns out that mitochondria are critical for dendritic functioning, optimal dendritic functioning. And it turns out that when the mitochondria are wonky, and mitochondria are present in dendritic cells, when the mitochondria are wonky, that actually causes the dendritic cell behavior to start changing in irregular or abnormal ways. And when that happens, guess what? You get this strange immune dysregulation. And I don't want to belabor you. We'll talk about this in future ones because I'll get into this in more detail. I promise to keep these short, so I'm giving you little snippets. When mitochondria dysfunction, all of a sudden you get other strange things because other organ systems go a little bit haywire. And ultimately, the entire system starts behaving in a very erratic fashion. And this is the thing that I want you to do. I want you to step back and look around. Just open your eyes. You don't even need to believe me. Go on Google, mitochondria immune cells, or mitochondria immunity. And if you don't even do that, just start looking around you. Be like, how the hell is that person so resilient? And how the hell does that person get sick? Or why do I get sick so often? And by asking these questions, you start opening doors of understanding, which then allow you to see things more clearly and, most importantly, take action. And we'll be talking about this in future discussions. How do you optimize mitochondria functioning? How do you optimize immunity? So while we want to be careful, while we want to do all of the things that we're told, wear your mask, social distance, all of that. I'm not saying don't do that. How do you build up your vitality and resiliency so when the storm of coronavirus hits, because chances are about 50% of us ultimately will get this virus at some point, you know, unless you're planning to stay at home for the next 6 to 12 months until the perfect vaccine comes, and who knows if that will come early on. At some point it will. It may not come right away though. So unless you're planning to stay at home, the other way to look at this is being careful, doing the social distancing, doing all of those things, and building up your resiliency so if and when it hits, you can ride it out as easily as possible. So in our next segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about the immune system and then start talking about what to do to make it more resilient. Thanks for watching. This is Dr. K.